Forgotten Promises. The Mumbai monsoon pattered against the windows of Elysium Tower, casting the penthouse office in a soft gray light. Vikram Malhotra stood with his back to the door, watching raindrops race down the glass. At 38, he had the kind of success most men only dreamed of, founder of Nexus Technologies, with a net worth that made headlines quarterly. Yet the rain always brought back memories he'd rather forget. "Mr. Malhotra," his assistant's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "The last candidate for the governess position is here." Vikram didn't turn. "Send her in, Priya." He heard the door open and close, followed by light footsteps. Something about the cadence made him straighten his shoulders, a familiar rhythm he hadn't heard in years. "Good afternoon, The voice froze him in place. Slowly he turned. There she stood, Ananya Desai, the woman who had promised him forever 6 years ago, then vanished without a trace the night before their engagement ceremony. Her hair was shorter now, falling just past her shoulders instead of the waist length, waves he'd once run his fingers through. She'd lost weight, and there was something guarded in her eyes that hadn't been there before. But it was her. Undeniably, her. For a moment, neither spoke. Ananya's expression shifted from professional politeness to shock, then quickly settled into careful neutrality. "Mr. Malhotra," she recovered first, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. "I'm Ananya Iyer. Thank you for considering my application." Iyer, not Desai, an alias. She didn't recognize him. How was that possible? His face had been plastered across business magazines for years. Unless she was pretending. But why would she seek him out now, after all this time? "Please, sit." He gestured to the chair across from his desk, studying her as she moved. The grace was still there, the elegant way she carried herself, remnants of her classical dance training. He scanned her resume as if seeing it for the first time, though he'd memorized it hours ago. "Your qualifications are impressive. Experience with the Sharma family in Delhi. References from the Mehtas in Bangalore." "Yes, I've been a governess for 8 years now." Another lie. 6 years ago, she'd been teaching Bharatanatyam at her family's dance academy, dreams of opening her own studio sparkling in her eyes. "And why did you leave your previous position?" "The family relocated to London. I preferred to stay in India." Vikram nodded, fighting to keep his expression neutral. "My son, Arjun, is 5. His mother—" He paused, the familiar ache returning. "Passed away 2 years ago. Cancer." Something flickered in Ananya's eyes, genuine sympathy. "I'm very sorry for your loss." "He's a quiet boy, sensitive. He needs stability, patience." Vikram leaned forward. "Why should I trust you with him, Ms. Iyer?" The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken weight. Did she hear it? The real question beneath: why did you leave me? Why have you returned with a false name and a fabricated past? Ananya met his gaze without flinching. "Because children see what adults often miss, Mr. Malhotra. They recognize genuine care. I may not have all the answers, but I know how to listen, how to be present. Your son deserves nothing less." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. For a moment, Vikram saw the old Ananya, passionate, sincere, the woman he'd planned to spend his life with. "The position requires you to live here, in the penthouse." "I understand. You would start immediately." "I can arrange that." Vikram stood, walking to the window again. He should send her away, tell her he knew exactly who she was, and demand explanations. Instead, he heard himself say, "You're hired, Ms. Iyer. Priya will show you to your quarters and introduce you to Arjun." "Thank you, Mr. Malhotra." Her voice was carefully controlled, but he caught the slight exhale of relief. As she reached the door, he spoke again. "Ananya." Her hand froze on the doorknob. Welcome to our home. She nodded without turning, then slipped out of the office. Vikram pressed his forehead against the cool glass, watching the city blur through the rain. 6 years of questions, of anger, of loss. And now she was here, under his roof, a stranger, wearing a familiar face. What game was she playing? And more importantly, why was he letting her play it? Shadows between us. The penthouse was a masterpiece of modern luxury, yet to Ananya it felt like navigating a minefield. Every corner held the potential for discovery, for the moment when Vikram would finally confront her about her true identity. It had been 3 weeks since she'd started caring for Arjun, and every day was both a blessing and torture. The little boy sat cross-legged on the living room floor, carefully constructing a tower of wooden blocks. His dark eyes, so like his father's, were focused intently on his task, his small brow furrowed in concentration. "Higher, Ananya Didi?" he asked, looking up at her with such open trust that it made her heart ache. "As high as you want, sunshine," she replied, handing him another block. "But remember what we learned about balance? The bottom must be strong," he recited, carefully placing the piece. "Like the foundations of a building," she smiled. That's right. Arjun was nothing like she had expected. When she'd applied to the position, having no idea the employer was Vikram, she'd anticipated a spoiled, demanding child of privilege. Instead, she found a thoughtful, sometimes melancholy boy who treasured small kindnesses and hoarded words like precious gems. It took her a week to coax him into full sentences, another to hear him laugh. Now his quiet companionship was the only peace in her chaotic thoughts. "He speaks more with you than he has with anyone since his mother died." Ananya startled at Vikram's voice. He stood in the doorway, suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, watching them with an unreadable expression. How long had he been there? "We understand each other," she said carefully, rising from the floor. "Don't we, Arjun?" The boy nodded, but his attention had shifted entirely to his father. "Papa, will you help us? We're building Mumbai." Something softened in Vikram's eyes. "Mumbai, is it? Then we'll need a tower for Nexus, won't we?" He lowered himself to the floor with a grace that still made Ananya's breath catch. 6 years had only refined him, added distinguished silver at his temples, deepened the character lines around his eyes. "Here," Arjun handed him a blue block. "This one is for you." As father and son built together, Ananya retreated to the kitchen, under the pretense of preparing dinner. She needed space, air that wasn't filled with Vikram's subtle cologne and memories that threatened to drown her. She was chopping vegetables when she felt his presence behind her. He moved so quietly for such a commanding man. "He's playing in his room," Vikram said, answering her unasked question about Arjun. He reached past her for a glass, his arm briefly brushing hers. "You've been good for him?" "He's a wonderful child." She kept her eyes on the knife, the rhythmic motion of chopping. He leaned against the counter, sipping water, studying her. "You know, it's curious. In your file, you listed your hometown as Pune, but yesterday, when Arjun asked, you mentioned growing up in Kolkata." Her knife paused momentarily. "My family moved when I was 10. I consider both home in different ways." "I see." His tone was neutral, but she could feel the weight of his scrutiny. "And your dance training? That wasn't mentioned in your resume?" Her heart stuttered. She'd slipped yesterday, instinctively correcting Arjun's stance when he was trying to balance on one foot, a classical dance position she'd taught countless students. "A childhood hobby," she managed. "Nothing professional." "Strange. You move like someone formally trained." He set down his glass. "Almost like a Bharatanatyam dancer." The knife clattered against the cutting board. She steadied her hand, resuming her work with deliberate focus. "Many Indian girls take classical dance lessons, Mr. Malhotra." "Vikram," he corrected. "You should call me Vikram at home." For Arjun's sake. She nodded, not trusting her voice. For 3 weeks, she'd maintained the formality of Mr. Malhotra like a shield. Do you know what I think, Ananya? His voice dropped lower, intimate. I think you're hiding something. She finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. We're all hiding something, aren't we? Vikram? Something flashed in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, at her directness. For a moment, they stood in silent confrontation, the air between them electric with unspoken words. The moment broke when Arjun called from his room. Didi, come see my drawing. Excuse me, she murmured, slipping past him. Vikram caught her wrist gently. This conversation isn't finished. No, she pulled away. It never really started. That night, after Arjun was asleep, Ananya stood on the balcony, watching Mumbai's lights glitter below. The city had changed in 6 years, grown more vertical, more ambitious. So had she, in different ways. Harder, more guarded, resigned too, shadows rather than light. She didn't hear Vikram until he spoke, his voice carrying on the night breeze. I recognized you the moment you walked into my office, Ananya Desai. Her hands tightened on the railing. There it was, the confrontation she'd been dreading. How long were you going to pretend? He continued, moving to stand beside her. How long were we going to dance around the truth? I wasn't sure you remembered me, she said, the lie hollow even to her own ears. His laugh was short, bitter. Remembered you? You think I could forget the woman who disappeared the night before I was going to propose to her? Who vanished without a word? Without a trace? I had my reasons. And what reasons were those? His voice hardened. Was it the money? The attention? Did you get cold feet about marrying into business and responsibility? She turned to him then, anger flaring. You know nothing about my reasons. Then enlighten me, he challenged. Because for 6 years, I've had nothing but questions and rumors. 6 years of wondering if anything between us was real. Everything between us was real? The words escaped before she could stop them. That's why I had to leave. Confusion crossed his face. That makes no sense. It doesn't have to make sense to you. She moved to go inside. I should check on Arjun. He's sleeping soundly. I just looked in on him. Vikram blocked her path. Why are you here, Ananya? Why now? Why the false name, the fabricated background? He looked away. I needed the job. I didn't know it was your son, your home. By the time I realized it was too late to back out without questions I couldn't answer. So it's coincidence? His tone was incredulous. After all this time, you accidentally apply to be my son's governess? The world isn't always about you, Vikram. The old familiar use of his name slipped out naturally. Sometimes things just happen. I don't believe in that kind of coincidence. Believe what you want. I'm here for Arjun now. He needs stability. She finally met his gaze again. If you want me to leave, I will. But it will hurt him. They stood in tense silence, the city humming below them, the past looming between them. Finally, Vikram stepped aside. Stay, for Arjun's sake, but don't think this is over, Ananya. The truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deep you try to bury it. As she passed him, their shoulders brushed, a whisper of contact that sent electricity through her veins, reminding her of everything she'd lost, everything she'd given up. Behind her closed door, Ananya pressed her palms against her eyes, willing, back tears. She had known this confrontation was inevitable, but nothing had prepared her for the pain in his voice, the accusation in his eyes. The irony was bitter. She had left to protect him, and now he believed she had abandoned him out of selfishness. Some truths were too dangerous to surface. Some secrets had to remain buried, no matter the cost to her heart. The truth unravels. The tension in the penthouse was palpable in the days following their confrontation. They circled each other cautiously, cordial for Arjun's sake, but the undercurrent of unresolved history charged every interaction. Vikram arrived home earlier than usual, joining them for dinner, observing Ananya with his son, asking questions that seemed innocent, but probed at the edges of her fabricated past. It was a waiting game, and Ananya knew she was losing. The breaking point came unexpectedly on a Sunday afternoon. Arjun had fallen asleep after lunch, exhausted from a morning at the park. Ananya was organizing his art supplies when Vikram appeared in the doorway of the playroom. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Properly." She nodded, following him to his study, a room she'd avoided since arriving. Unlike the rest of the penthouse with its minimalist modern aesthetic, the study was rich with warmth. Wood paneling, leather chairs, shelves of books. It was exactly as she would have imagined his personal space had she allowed herself to imagine it over the years. What she hadn't expected was the photograph on his desk, partially hidden behind a stack of files but unmistakable, the two of them 6 years ago, laughing at the beach in Goa, her head thrown back in joy, his arms around her waist. He'd kept it. All this time. Vikram followed her gaze, then deliberately turned the frame face down. "Sit, please." She perched on the edge of a leather chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. Vikram didn't sit. Instead, he paced slowly before stopping at the window. "I've respected your privacy for weeks now," he began. "I've allowed you to maintain this charade for Arjun's sake, but I can't do it anymore." "What do you want from me, Vikram?" "The truth." He turned to face her. "All of it. Why you left, where you went, why you're back. I deserve that much." "Some truths are better left buried," she said softly. "Not this one." His voice was firm. "Not anymore." She rose, unable to sit still under his scrutiny. "What good will it do? It's been 6 years. We've both built different lives." "Have we?" He moved closer. "Because you're here, in my home, caring for my son. And I still wake up wondering why the woman I loved enough to propose to vanished without a trace. The past tense stung more than it should have. Loved, not loves. "It wasn't my choice," she finally said. "Everything is a choice, Ananya. Not when someone you love is being threatened." The words escaped in a rush, hanging in the air between them. Vikram went still. "What are you talking about?" She closed, her eyes, the memory still vivid after all these years. "The night before our engagement ceremony, I received a message with photos of my brother Nikhil, screenshots of his location, his workplace, his apartment building, along with very explicit threats about what would happen to him if I went through with the ceremony. That's impossible. Who would— Devin Rathore." She watched recognition flash across his face. "Your business partner at the time." Vikram sank into his chair, stunned. "Devin? But why would he—" "Because he knew I'd discovered what he was doing." She began pacing now, years of pent-up words finally finding release. "The back door in your security software, the one that was collecting user data and selling it overseas, I found it by accident when I was using your laptop that weekend. I mentioned it to him, thinking he'd want to know about the security breach." "There was no security breach," Vikram said slowly, realization dawning. "He put it there deliberately." She nodded. "He made it very clear that if I told you, or if I stayed in your life, my brother would suffer the consequences. And to prove he was serious, he sent me photos of Nikhil being followed, details only someone tracking him would know." "Why didn't you come to me?" Anger edged into his voice. "I could have protected you, your family." "Could you?" she challenged. "Devin had resources, connections you didn't know about. He made it clear he would know if I told you, said he had people inside, your security team, so you just left, without a word." I left a note, she said quietly, in your jacket pocket, telling you I couldn't explain but that I was sorry. She frowned at his expression. You never found it? No. His voice was hollow. I never checked. The jacket was taken to be returned to the rental company the next day. The irony was almost too much. A missed note, a misunderstanding that had cost them 6 years. After I left, I moved Nikhil to Bangalore, changed our names, our appearances. I monitored the news about you from a distance. When Devon was forced out of the company 2 years later over ethical disagreements, I thought perhaps it was safe. But by then, her voice faltered. By then I was married to Nisha. Vikram completed the thought, his face a mask of controlled emotion. Out of grief and loneliness, I married a woman I respected but never loved the way. He didn't finish the sentence. I saw the wedding announcement. The memory still hurt. I thought you had moved on. And now? He stood, approaching her slowly. Why come back now of all times? Why apply for this position? I didn't know it was your household, she insisted. The agency only gave me the address after I was selected. When I realized I nearly didn't come, but I needed the work desperately. My dance academy in Bangalore failed during the pandemic. Nikhil has been ill. Medical bills have depleted our savings. Something in Vikram's expression changed. Nikhil is sick? What's wrong with him? Kidney disease. He needs a transplant. She swallowed hard. I'm a match, but the procedure, the recovery time, it's expensive. I can't afford to be without work for months. Vikram ran a hand through his hair, processing everything. And Devon? Do you still fear him? He left India after the scandal at Nexus, didn't he? Last I heard, he was in Singapore. He died, Ananya. Vikram's voice was gentle. 2 years ago. Car accident in Malaysia. The news hit her like a physical blow. He's gone? All these years of looking over her shoulder, of calculated caution, of fear, for a threat that no longer existed. Why didn't you ever try to contact me after he left the company? Vikram asked. If you thought it might be safe then? Because I saw how quickly you moved on. The words hurt to say. And I didn't want to disrupt your life again. Vikram's laugh was bitter. Moved on. I married Nisha because she was kind and stable when I was falling apart. We were companions, partners in a way, but we were never... He hesitated. She knew she wasn't first in my heart. She accepted that until she got sick. Before she died, she made me promise to find happiness again, not just contentment. A knock at the door interrupted them. Arjun stood there, rubbing, sleep from his eyes. Papa? Didi? Why are you talking so serious? His voice was small, concerned. Vikram composed himself instantly, crouching to his son's level. We're just having a grown-up conversation, Beta. Nothing for you to worry about. Arjun looked between them, unconvinced. Are you fighting? Is Ananya Didi going to leave? The question hung in the air, loaded with a child's perception of undercurrents adults think they're hiding. No sunshine, Ananya said gently, joining Vikram at Arjun's level. I'm not going anywhere. She met Vikram's eyes over Arjun's head. A question, a promise, an uncertainty. Ananya Didi is staying, Vikram confirmed, his gaze not leaving hers. We have a lot more to talk about. And in that moment, with Arjun's small hand reaching, for both of theirs, the first fragile bridge began to form across 6 years of absence. Healing wounds, the days that followed their confrontation were marked by a strange, tentative truce. The truth lay between them now, raw, painful, but oddly liberating. Ananya no longer had to hide behind the fiction of Ms. Iyer, and Vikram's sharp observations softened into genuine questions about her life during their years apart. One evening, after Arjun was tucked in bed, Vikram found Ananya on the balcony, wrapped in a shawl against the evening chill. "I have something for you," he said, holding out a thick envelope. She took it cautiously. "What is this?" "Open it." Inside was a check, an amount that made her breath catch.
"Vikram, I can't accept this. It's not for you. It's for Nikhil's treatment."
His expression was resolute.
"And before you object about pride or charity, consider it compensation."
"Compensation? For what?"
"For what my company's association with Devon cost you."
"Your safety, your career, your peace of mind." He leaned against the railing beside her. "This doesn't begin to cover it, but it will get Nikhil the transplant and care he needs." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll call the hospital tomorrow. Set up the procedure." He hesitated. "And say you'll let me help arrange for the best specialists." She studied his face in the city lights. "Why are you doing this?" "Because it's the right thing to do." He paused. "And because I never stopped caring, Ananya, despite everything." The admission hung between them, neither quite ready to examine what it meant. The next morning, during breakfast, Arjun spilled his juice across the table. As Ananya quickly mopped up the mess, the boy's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, he repeated anxiously, his small body tensing as if expecting anger. "Hey, sunshine, it's just juice." She knelt beside him. "Accidents happen." "But I ruined breakfast," his voice quavered. "Nothing's ruined," Vikram assured him, helping clean up. "See? All better." Arjun looked unconvinced, his shoulders still hunched. Ananya exchanged a concerned glance with Vikram over the boy's head. Later, when Arjun was occupied with his tutor, Vikram pulled Ananya aside. "Has he reacted like that before? So afraid of making mistakes?" She nodded slowly. "A few times. I've been trying to show him it's okay to mess up, that no one gets angry. But it's like he's expecting punishment." Vikram's expression darkened. "Nisha's mother lived with us for a while after Nisha died. She was traditional in her child rearing, very strict. I didn't realize how much it affected him until she moved back to Delhi 6 months ago." "That explains a lot." Ananya hesitated. "He needs to know it's safe to be imperfect." "I know." Vikram ran a hand through his hair. "I'm trying, but I'm not always sure how to undo that damage. We'll figure it out," she said automatically, then paused, realizing she'd included herself in Arjun's future. Vikram noticed too, a small smile touching his lips. "Yes, we will." That weekend, they took Arjun to the beach, the same one from the photograph in Vikram's study, though none of them mentioned the coincidence. They built sand castles, splashed in the waves, ate ice cream that melted too quickly in the sun. When Arjun accidentally knocked over Vikram's elaborate sand fortress, he froze in panic. "I broke it, Papa. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Vikram surveyed the damage, then grinned. "You know what? I think you improved it. Look, now it's a sand earthquake site, much more interesting." Arjun's eyes widened. "You're not mad?" "Mad? For making my boring castle into an adventure scene?" "Never." The tension left Arjun's body as Vikram pulled him into a hug, sand and all. Over the boy's head, Vikram's eyes met Ananya's, and something unspoken passed between them. A shared commitment to healing this child's wounds, and perhaps their own in the process. That night, after Arjun fell asleep in the car on the drive home, Vikram carried him to bed while Ananya prepared tea. They met in the living room, comfortably tired from the day in the sun. "You're good with him," Ananya said, handing Vikram a cup. "He adores you." "I'm learning." He sipped the tea. Made exactly as he liked it, she remembered. "I miss so much." Of his early years, working constantly, thinking providing was enough. After Nisha died, I realized time matters more than anything I could buy him.
It's never too late to change, she said softly. Is it? His gaze was direct. Is it never too late? She knew he wasn't just talking about parenting anymore. Vikram, she began, uncertain. I've been thinking about the past, he interrupted, about everything we lost because of Devon's threats, about the coincidence that brought you back into my life. I told you it really was coincidence. I didn't plan to find you again. I know, and that's what makes it feel like we're being given a second chance. He set down his cup. Nikhil's surgery is scheduled for next month. You'll need somewhere to recover afterward, both of you. The agency has arranged temporary housing. Stay here, he said simply. Both of you. We have plenty of room. She stared at him. That's complicated. Life is complicated. He moved closer on the sofa. 6 years ago, we were planning a future together. Then circumstances tore us apart. Now circumstances have brought us together again. Maybe we should pay attention to that. We're different people now, Vikram. Are we? Or are we just older versions of the same people who fell in love? His hand found hers. I'm not saying we pick up exactly where we left off. Too much has happened. But I am saying I'd like to discover who we are now, together. His touch was achingly familiar, yet new. The same hands, but with different calluses, different stories written in their lines. What about Arjun? What if things don't work between us? He's already attached to me. He is. But he's also resilient, more than we give him credit for. Vikram squeezed her hand gently. And I think the lesson he needs most right now is that it's okay to try again after something breaks. That broken doesn't mean finished. She found herself leaning into him slightly, drawn by the warmth and sincerity in his voice. I've missed you, she admitted. Even when I told myself I'd moved on, there was always this Vikram-shaped hole in my life. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his serious face. I've missed you too, every day. When he kissed her, it was gentle, a question, not a demand. She answered by drawing him closer, 6 years of longing and regret melting into something tentatively hopeful. They had a long way to go, trust to rebuild, habits to relearn, new boundaries to establish. But for the first time since she'd walked back into his office, Ananya allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, second chances were possible after all. A new beginning. 3 months passed in a blur of hospital visits, recovery, and gradual healing, both physical and emotional. Nikhil's transplant had been successful. He was now residing in the guest suite of the penthouse, regaining strength daily. Ananya had given him one of her kidneys, and though her own recovery had been painful, watching her brother return to health made every moment worthwhile. What she hadn't anticipated was how Arjun would take to Nikhil. The 5-year-old was fascinated by her brother's stories of engineering projects around the world, his collection of fossils, his patient explanations of how things worked. They built elaborate structures together, Arjun's imagination complementing Nikhil's technical knowledge. I think I've been replaced as favorite uncle, Vikram commented one evening, watching them from the doorway of Arjun's room where an impressive Lego cityscape was taking shape. Uncle? Ananya raised an eyebrow. Is that what you are to him? Nikhil grinned, carefully adding a bridge to their creation. Well, not yet officially, but I've been told there might be plans in that direction. Nikhil, Ananya hissed, feeling her cheeks warm. What plans? Arjun looked up curiously. Is it a surprise? Maybe, Vikram said, his eyes never leaving Ananya's flustered face. If certain people agree to certain questions. Later that night, after Arjun was asleep and Nikhil had retired to his room, Ananya found Vikram in his study, reviewing documents. You shouldn't tease like that in front of Arjun, she chided gently. He takes things literally. Now he's expecting some big surprise. Vikram set aside his work, turning to face her fully. "Who says I was teasing?" The seriousness in his tone made her pause. "Vikram." He stood, taking her hands in his. "These past months, having you here, seeing you with Arjun, rebuilding what we lost, it's been the happiest I've been in years." "For me too," she admitted softly. "I know we agreed. To take things slowly, to rediscover each other without expectations." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "But some things haven't changed, Ananya. How I feel about you, that's only grown stronger." Her heart quickened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want more than this limbo we're in. More than stolen moments and careful boundaries." He released one of her hands to reach into his desk drawer. "I'm saying I still want what I wanted 6 years ago." The small velvet box he withdrew made her breath catch. "Vikram," before you answer, he interrupted. Gently, "I want you to know this isn't the same ring from before. That belonged to a different time, different versions of us. This is new, like us." He opened the box to reveal a simple but stunning sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "The sapphire reminded me of that day at the beach, the color of the water, when you laughed and told me you could imagine forever with me." Tears blurred her vision. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." His voice was husky with emotion. "Every conversation, every dream we shared. I've carried them with me all these years." She stared at the ring, then at his face. So beloved, so familiar despite the new lines around his eyes, the touches of silver at his temples. "What about Arjun? Have you talked to him about this?" Vikram smiled. "He's the one who helped me pick the ring. Said blue was your favorite color because the sky is blue and you love watching clouds." A laugh bubbled up through her tears. "He's observant." Like his father, Vikram's expression grew serious again. "I'm not asking you to be his mother. He had one, and we honor her memory. But he loves you in his own way already. And he took a deep breath. "I never stopped loving you, Ananya. Not for a single day." The words she'd longed to hear for 6 years hung in the air between them, a bridge across time and pain and loss. "What if something separates us again?" she whispered, voicing her deepest fear. "What if—" "Then we face it together." His certainty was unwavering. "No more secrets, no more sacrifices without sharing the burden. Whatever comes, we face it as one." She touched the ring gently, then looked up at him. "Ask me," she said softly, "properly." Understanding flashed in his eyes. He lowered himself to one knee, still holding her hand. "Ananya Desai, will you marry me? Not because of our past or what might have been, but because of who we are now and what we can build together?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Vikram, I will." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, they both noted how perfectly it fit, like a missing piece finally found. The future stretched before them. Not the one they had planned 6 years ago, but something new, something hard-won through loss and patience and forgiveness. There would be challenges, merging their lives, helping Arjun adjust, navigating the public interest when news broke that the reclusive tech billionaire was marrying his son's governess. But none of that mattered in this moment as Vikram pulled her to her feet and into his arms, sealing their promise with a kiss that felt like coming home after a very long journey. Dawn found them on the balcony, watching the sun rise over Mumbai. Ananya leaned back against Vikram's chest, his arms wrapped around her waist, her head tucked beneath his chin, a familiar position from years ago that still fit perfectly. "What are you thinking?" he murmured into her hair. "That some loves are worth waiting for." She turned in his arms to face him. "That sometimes the longest roads lead exactly where we're meant to be." The sound of small feet interrupted them. Arjun stood in the doorway, still in his pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Did you ask her, Papa? Did she say yes? Ananya knelt down, holding out her hand to show the ring. I said yes, sunshine. Arjun's face lit up with a smile so bright it rivaled the rising sun. He launched himself into their arms, and they caught him together, the three of them tangled in a hug that felt like the beginning of something beautiful. Over Arjun's head, Ananya's eyes met Vikram's, filled with promise, with hope, with the certainty that this time nothing would tear them apart. This time, they would write their story together, page by page, day by day, a new beginning, built on the foundations of the past, but reaching toward a future limited only by their courage to embrace it.